One of the most important tools that you'll have to learn for this particular class of physics is how to convert between units. And the tool that we use for that is to multiply quantities by what are called unit fractions. Now, a unit fraction is something as simple as 12 inches per 1 foot. So it's a fraction, and it has units in it, so it's called a unit fraction for that reason. But it's also a play off of another meaning of the word unit. Unity, for instance, means one, something that's one. This is a form of 1. It's got the exact same thing on top and bottom of the fraction, and you know that that means that this is 1. Anything that's the same on top and bottom, like 3 over 3 or 5 over 5, those are all 1s. And when you multiply by 1, you don't change your quantity. So if I have a specific length, like 10 feet for a basketball hoop, for instance, and if I multiply that by a form of 1, I'm still going to have the exact same height, but now it's expressed in a different unit, in inches instead of feet. Notice how when you've got some quantity like feet, which would be on top, 10 feet over 1, for instance, feet on top and feet on bottom cancels themselves out, and so I'm left with inches, and this would be 120 inches. So now, one thing that will be extremely important is that you know and can come up with quantities like 12 inches per 1 foot. If you can come up with these unit fractions, the more of these you know, and the faster you can come up with them, the better you'll be at this whole process. So for now, you might want to create some note cards, say like this one, that have a lot of conversions on them. Eventually, you'll memorize most of these, although I didn't know a light year. I had to look that one up. But each of these facts, each of these conversions could be written as a unit fraction. For instance, the top one there, 1 meter per 100 centimeters. You could write that as the fraction 1 meter per 100 centimeters. Or you could write it as 100 centimeters per meter. And depending on what you're converting from and what you're converting to, either of these two fractions might be useful for you. So, like I said, any fact like this could be written as a fraction, and we'll have to decide along the way which of these particular fractions is the most useful for our particular problem. So, let's look now at a specific example, one that's dear to my heart, and that is I love the sport of tennis, and I'd like to know how many meters a tennis court is. I know that it's 78 feet long, but I want to know how many meters that is. So anytime I've got this sort of a conversion process, I'm going to start with the fact that I know and write that down, 78 feet. And I'm going to multiply this by a unit conversion fraction that will convert feet into meters. The problem is I don't know how many feet there are in a meter. So let's look it up from our note card. So do we see any fact here that says how many feet there are in a meter? Here's one that has feet, but that converts it to miles. Here's another one that has feet, that converts it to inches. Here's a few that have meters in them that convert not to feet. Unfortunately, I don't know how many feet there are in a meter. That would be a really good conversion fact to know, and so maybe I ought to look it up. But let's not resort to Google quite yet. I think we can maybe make it work here. And the key is that you can multiply by several unit fractions if you need to. Specifically, I think I could use this fact to go from feet into inches, and then I can use this fact that an inch, I can convert from inches into centimeters, and then the very top fact, how many centimeters there are in a meter. I could use those three facts to create what I need. So let's go back down here and see what we can come up with. Let's start with how many inches there are in a foot. There are 12 inches in 1 foot, and I chose to write this fraction as opposed to 1 foot per 12 inches because I want feet on top over here to cancel out with feet on the bottom. So now, if I just stopped right now, I would have an answer that would be how many inches long a tennis court is. But I can continue. I can multiply again by 1. Doesn't matter how many times I multiply by 1. It's still going to be the same length. But let's use a different form of 1. Let's say a very handy conversion that 1 inch is the same thing as 2.54 centimeters. So here I've got inches on top and inches on bottom, and those will cancel out. And if I were to quit right now, I would take 78 times 12 times 2.54, and that would be how many centimeters long my tennis court is. But I want to, not centimeters, I want to know how many meters long it is, so I should convert one more time, and that is put 100 centimeters. Notice this time the big number was in the bottom, and the 1 meter is on top. So a lot of kids ask me, do I need to divide by 100 or multiply by 100? Honestly, if you use this particular technique, the technique will tell you whether you need to multiply or divide. In this instance, I have to divide by 100 because the 100 centimeters had to be on the bottom to cancel out with the centimeters I already had on top. Now, I would take 78 times 12 times 2.54 and divide it by this number that's in the bottom of 100, and that would give me the answer in meters. So let me get out my calculator. Let's multiply by all the numbers that are on the top and divide by any of the numbers that you see on the bottom. And there's an answer, 23.7744 meters long, and we'll say 24 meters. We'll round it to the nearest meter. Now let's answer another question related, and let's try to calculate how much time a professional tennis player has to react to another professional's serve. The professionals can serve well over 100 miles per hour. Let's suppose one serve was 130 miles per hour. How much time would you have to react to that? Now, this is not a conversion problem per se, but we can use this conversion technique to answer this. What we're really going to try to do is convert the distance, the length of the tennis court, into an amount of time. And we're going to use this 130 miles per hour fact as a specific unit conversion for this particular problem. We're going to say at some point that 130 miles is equal to 1 hour. Miles, 130 miles per hour. So this is a specific converter that will convert a distance into an amount of time. So what we have to start off with really is the same that we started off with last time. We've got the length of the tennis court is 78 feet long, and I want to convert that into an amount of time. So at some point I'll have to use either this conversion or I might have to use 1 hour per 130 miles. I don't know yet. We'll let the system kind of figure that out. But to get there, I should convert probably feet into miles. Then I can use this fraction. So this is a fact that I know already, that there's 5,280 feet in a mile. So let me write that, 5,280 feet per mile. So feet cancels. Now I've got miles. And I think at this point I can use this particular fraction to convert it into time, although it looks like I'm going to have to use its reciprocal. I'm going to have to put 130 miles on the bottom, and that would take an hour. So if I stopped right now, I would figure out how many hours it would take for a professional to, or that's how many hours the professional would have to react, but that doesn't probably make sense. What's converted into seconds? After all, that's what the question asked for. I happen to know how many hours there are in a minute or minutes in a second and things of that nature. Specifically, I know that there are 60 minutes in 1 hour. And I know that there are 60 seconds in a minute. And so, miles and miles cancel. So at this point, the only unit I have left in my process here is seconds. And so that's what the question asked for, how many seconds. And so I can switch to my calculator. And I can type this in. 78, I need to divide by numbers that are on the bottom. So divide by 5,280, divided by 130, multiply by the numbers that are on top. And I get an answer of about 0.4 of a second, maybe 0.41. Most times they're measured in 2 decimal places, and the original number here was 78 feet, had 2 numbers in it as well. So let's round it to 2 spots. We'll say 0.41 seconds.